Alright soldiers, it's time to talk about the real workhorses of Battlefield 6, the assault rifles. These bad boys are the perfect mix of power, precision, and versatility. Whether you're locking down mid-range fights or pushing aggressively into objectives, ARS always have your back. Sure, they kick a bit harder than SMGs or carbines, but that's the price of real stopping power. Once you learn to tame that recoil, you'll be melting enemies before they even realize what hit them. In this video, we're ranking every assault rifle in Battlefield 6 to find out which one truly deserves the title of Best in Class. We'll break down how each weapon performs in real combat, damage, handling, versatility, the whole package. So if you're tired of guessing which rifle to use and just want to dominate every gunfight, stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which AR to take into battle. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The Cord 6P67 is one of those assault rifles in Battlefield 6 that feels like it was made for players who love precision and control. It's basically the grown-up version of the M4A1, less wild, more stable, and way easier to handle during those mid to long-range fights. Sure, it does a little less damage up close, but the trade-off is absolutely worth it. The recoil is minimal, the accuracy is rock solid, and that 2-round burst mode makes it a laser beam once you get the rhythm right. If you like picking off enemies from 80 meters or more, this weapon will feel like an extension of your arm. Now, let's be honest. The Cord is not going to melt enemies as fast as some of the higher damage rifles out there. Its fire rate is blazing fast, which sounds great until you realize how easy it is to waste half your magazine when you miss a few shots. You might find yourself spraying a little too much and overshooting your targets. It's one of those guns that rewards discipline over chaos. You need to control your trigger finger if you want to make it shine. At the end of the day, the Cord 6P67 is all about consistency. It is not the flashiest or the deadliest, but it is the kind of rifle that will never let you down once you master it. Whether you are defending objectives, holding a lane, or picking enemies off from across the map, the Cord feels reliable in every situation. It is one of those weapons where every victory feels earned, because the only thing standing between you and that perfect kill streak is your own skill. The M433 is the kind of assault rifle that thrives in chaos. If you like charging into buildings or holding tight corners in Battlefield 6, this weapon will feel like a natural fit. Up close, it absolutely shreds. 4 body shots within 10 meters and your opponent is done. Combine that with an 830 rounds per minute fire rate, and you are looking at one of the fastest killers in the entire assault rifle category. In tight engagements, the M433 doesn't just compete with the Cord 6P67, it straight up outguns it. Of course, that power comes with a catch. The M433's recoil can be a real handful, especially when you first pick it up. It has this nasty habit of pulling to the right during sustained fire, and even with all the right attachments, that sidekick never fully disappears. You can learn to control it, sure, but if you lose focus for even a second, your shots can start drifting off target. It is one of those rifles that demands a bit of muscle memory and patience before you can truly dominate with it. But once you get used to its rhythm, the M433 becomes a monster at all ranges. It hits hard, it shoots fast, and it rewards aggressive play. You just need to respect its recoil and treat it with a bit of finesse. Once you do, it turns into the kind of weapon that makes every close-range fight feel like a highlight reel. It is not as smooth as the Cord, but it makes up for it with raw, unapologetic stopping power. The Envo 228E is a rifle that rewards patience and precision. It does not have the lightning-fast fire rate of the M433 or the burst control of the Cord 6P67, but what it does have is range. Once you get past that 40-meter mark, this thing starts to shine. The damage stays consistent, the recoil is smooth, and even when Weapon Bloom tries to mess with your aim, the NVO 228E holds steady. It feels built for players who like to stay calm under pressure and pick their shots carefully. Where this rifle really stands out is how user-friendly it is. Even without attachments, it performs surprisingly well. You do not need a crazy setup to make it effective. With the right build, though, it becomes one of the most reliable assault rifles in Battlefield 6. It is not meant for players who sprint into close quarters and spray wildly. Instead, it rewards those who play smart and control their engagements. It is the definition of a steady hand wins the fight kind of weapon. That said, if you find yourself face-to-face with an M433 user, you are probably in trouble. unless you know the NVO's little secret. At just 5 meters, this rifle can drop an opponent in 3 body shots, which means that in rare close encounters, it can still hit hard. So while it is not the fastest or flashiest rifle out there, the NVO 228E earns its spot as the reliable choice for anyone who values accuracy, control, and consistent performance over pure speed. The B36A4 is one of those assault rifles that just feels right the moment you start using it. It sits comfortably between the fast-firing M433 and the long-range specialist NVO 228E, offering a perfect balance of power, control, and versatility. With a fire rate of 720 rounds per minute, it is fast enough to hold its own in close quarters, yet still accurate enough to land consistent shots at medium range. You can tell this weapon was built for players who like to adapt to whatever the battlefield throws at them. What really makes the B36A4 stand out is how smooth it feels to shoot. The recoil, both visual and actual, is incredibly low, especially when you have it fully kitted with the right attachments. There is no wild kick, no unpredictable sway, just a clean, steady shooting experience that makes every engagement feel effortless. Compared to the M433 or the NVO 228E, it is easily the most comfortable rifle to control. Honestly, there is not much to criticize about the B36A4. It is the all-rounder of Battlefield 6's assault rifle lineup, the one weapon you can pick up and instantly perform well with. It might not dominate a specific range like the others, but it never feels weak either. Think of it as the baseline rifle, the one that defines what balanced really means. If you are not sure which assault rifle to use, the B36A4 is always a safe and reliable choice. The TR7 is one of those assault rifles that completely changes your mind once you spend some time with it. At first, it feels awful. There is no sugarcoating it. The recoil kicks sharply to the left and the accuracy bloom kicks in way too early, making those first few bursts feel unpredictable. But once you learn how to control it, something clicks. Suddenly, this chaotic weapon turns into an absolute monster up close. Within 20 meters, the TR7 is nearly unbeatable, shredding enemies before they even have time to react. What makes the TR7 even more surprising is how well it performs at longer distances for such a wild rifle. It can actually compete with the M277 carbine in damage output at around 75 to 80 meters, which is pretty insane for a gun that thrives in close quarters. It is not the kind of rifle you'd expect to tag enemies at range, but if your aim is on point, the TR7 can absolutely deliver. It rewards players who like to push their limits and play aggressively. That said, let's not pretend it is perfect. The recoil is still its biggest weakness, and even with the best attachments, you are never going to fully tame it. At medium range, the TR7 starts to fall apart. Shots go wide, accuracy drops, and the frustration starts creeping back in. But if you stick to tight spaces and fast fights, this rifle is a powerhouse. It is risky, it is messy, but when you make it work, the TR7 feels downright unstoppable. The L85A3 feels like the perfect weapon for players who live in that sweet spot between close and long-range combat. It is built for those 40 to 80 meter fights where precision and stability matter most, and in that zone, this rifle absolutely excels. Its recoil, accuracy, and fire rate are all beautifully balanced, making it one of the most dependable choices in Battlefield 6. Even when you push a bit closer into tight engagements, the L85A3 can still hold its ground surprisingly well. What really makes this rifle shine is how natural it feels to use once you get a sense of its rhythm. It does not require as much finesse as the NVO 228E, but it is not as easygoing as the SOR 556 either. It lands perfectly in the middle. The recoil pattern is predictable enough to manage without too much effort, which makes it great for players who want a mix of challenge and control. It has that just right feeling that makes every shot satisfying. If the SOR 556 is the smooth operator and the NVO 228E is the patient marksman, the L85A3 is the flexible workhorse sitting between them. It gives you a bit of everything: solid mid-range power, good handling, and enough versatility to adapt on the fly. It might not top the charts in any single category, but when it comes to consistency and reliability, the L85A3 is hard to beat. The SOR 556 is one of those assault rifles that might not blow you away at first, but the more you use it, the more you start to appreciate its strengths. It is definitely not built for close quarters chaos. Its low fire rate makes it struggle against faster rifles like the M433 or TR7. But take a few steps back and suddenly the SOR 556 starts to shine. In medium-range fights, this rifle is smooth, steady, and surprisingly deadly when you keep your shots on target. What really defines the SOR 556 is its recoil, or rather, the lack of it. This thing barely moves when you fire. It feels closer to an SMG like the UMG-40 than a typical assault rifle, making it perfect for players who prefer accuracy over raw speed. The recoil pattern is so minimal that you can stay locked onto enemies for entire bursts without having to drag your mouse or stick down much at all. Sure, the accuracy can feel a little inconsistent sometimes, but it still performs admirably when you get used to its pacing. The SOR 556 really finds its place on big open maps like Operation Firestorm, Mirak Valley, or Liberation Peak, anywhere with long sightlines and fewer tight corners. Players with good aim can take full advantage of its stability, especially if they use hollow points or synthetic tips to boost headshot damage. It is not the flashiest weapon in Battlefield 6, but for those who value precision and patience, the SOR 556 delivers exactly what you need: a calm, controlled, and efficient rifle built for distance. The AK-4D is one of those rifles that feels like a powerhouse in the right hands, but only if you play to its strengths. Between 40 and 80 meters, it absolutely dominates, tearing through enemies with brutal precision. Its damage profile is identical to the M60 machine gun, which means it can drop opponents in just 3 bullets up close and 4 at mid-range. When you hit your shots, the AK-4D feels unstoppable, almost like a semi-automatic sniper dressed up as an assault rifle. However, that slow fire rate of 514 rounds per minute is where things start to get tricky. In close quarters fights, the AK-4D struggles to keep up. If you miss even 1 or 2 shots, you're probably done for because faster rifles like the M433 or TR7 will melt you before you can recover. It is one of those weapons that demands precision. You have to make every bullet count. Spraying and praying is not an option here. That being said, the AK-4D is far from a bad weapon. It just has a much smaller comfort zone compared to the other assault rifles in Battlefield 6. Stick to those medium-range sightlines, play patiently, and you will see how rewarding it can be. But if you try to rush with it, you will quickly feel its limitations. It is not for everyone, but for players who value raw power and accuracy over speed, the AK-4D can be an incredibly satisfying pick. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.